Can I share with you?
Sure. We're just typing in where we're from right now to see where people are, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll get started. That's okay.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the Kentucky History Center and AARP, two wonderful organizations that do so much for Kentuckians. I'd like to also thank Anisha Gray for getting a hold of me and giving me this opportunity to share some stories that I've been able to collect over the past several years. And I like to call the people that I talk about everyday heroes. And I'd like to say also that I'm a bit of an investigative reporter, but I'm an investigative reporter of people from around Kentucky and good people who do admirable and good things. And I'm so happy to share those tonight. And it probably started out my interest in our Kentucky everyday heroes when I took with my brother and my family growing up in Northern Kentucky. We took one-day trips around the state and had a chance to meet a whole lot of people there. My dad introduced me to the people he had worked with in the past, and it was just a wonderful experience. Common people close to the soil, and others who just are special, and their neighbors thought they were admirable people. And I grew up around that. I had relatives that were important to me, and I had people in schools that encouraged me along the way, and people that got me to church on time, and people that I always hold dear. And so I've collected some stories, and I'd like to talk to you about one of my favorite persons by the name of Kendall Harvey. And Kendall is from the area of Adair County, Columbia, down in southern Kentucky, not far from Jamestown and Lake Cumberland. And Kendall had gotten into his 70s and had a stroke, had a little bit of some physical problems. And he had always built things. People said he had magic hands. He could build anything. He built churches, he built houses, and so forth. And he'd always done that. But he decided he would retire. But he had a problem. He didn't really have anything to kind of transition into. And so he kind of quickly got pretty bored, and he wondered, whether that was a good idea. One day he was at this local restaurant with his wife there in Columbia. He saw a little fellow that had obviously had Down syndrome, and he looked at the little boy and he said, "Young man," he said, "do you have a bicycle?" And the little boy said, "Well, my bicycle get fixed. It's broke." And his mother was standing there and looked at Kendall and said, "Kendall, my little boy's fibbing to you. He's got a disability. He can't ride a bike." Kendall took a look at him and he said, "You're fixing to ride my bike." And I told you that Kendall was good at making things with his hands. So he went home, went down into his workshop downstairs. And within a week, he had fashioned this little fella a three-wheel bike that he had talked to the little boy and found out his favorite colors and just little things that kind of sized him up and so forth. So the little Down syndrome boy, got on that bike, and he was all over that neighborhood, just excited, riding that three-wheel bike, and changed his little life. And the word got around about that little boy and how his little life had changed. And of course, Kendall was excited about that. Kendall started getting notes and phone calls and so forth. And the question began to be, "Kendall, will you make a three-wheel bike for my grandchild or my little brother or whatever? And he would say yes and yes and yes. And the way he did it was, he had a local department store that actually sold them the bicycles, I guess at a good price. He would take these bicycles apart and use these magic hands, this talent that he had, and turn these things into three-wheel bikes. And he began to send these out to people all over. There were plenty of people that wanted them, went all over Kentucky. And when people are authentic and they do good things like that, the word just gets out. And the lives were changed. And I had a difficult time getting an interview to hear this story from Kendall Harvey, because he's such a person that doesn't want recognition for anything. He's a strong man of faith. And but when I told him that if I get this story out there, Kendall, there might be other people that would be inspired to do something that you've done so well. And so he finally reneged on it, and I went down to Columbia and I interviewed this fine gentleman. Fast forward, I talked to him a few years ago before he passed on. He told me that he had built and delivered 157 of these bicycles. I like to call them three-wheel offerings. And not long after that, he passed on. And I got a hold of his sister, who told me that one of the largest funerals ever in that little town of Columbia, Kentucky, happened with Kendall Harvey. Kendall Harvey it's a story I've told. I've been a public school teacher, and I've told that story, I guess, hundreds and hundreds of times, and never ceases to inspire the young people and others that I've told. So Kendall Harvey is one of those people for the ages. Did those kinds of things because it was an act of faith in his part. He brought joy to others. He invigorated his own retirement, and that was just a tremendous byproduct of that. Anybody like to ask me about anything about Kendall?
He sounds like a very interesting fellow. How old was he when he first started? I kind of missed that part. When he first started building these three-wheel miracles?
Yeah. I believe he was in his mid 70s, and he ended up doing this, I think, all told, about 10 years. And a friend told me about Kendall because his brother had one of those three-wheel bikes built for his son, and just an amazing story. And like I said, I had to try like the Dickens to get him to be the subject of one of my stories, and know that it might be out there and publicized. But when he knew, and when he realized that the story could maybe inspire others to do that, he said, "Let's do it." So
sounds like a modest person, and it sounds also like he was building an average of 1-point-something bikes a month for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's more I could even tell. I mean, he made what he called paraplanes, and he told me that on 2 different occasions he flew a paraplane. One time in front of the courthouse in Columbia, and also down in the courthouse of Jamestown, not far from there. But he was one thing I didn't mention. He was a relatively uneducated man in terms of academia. He made it through the 8th grade, but he was, I'm sure, what many people would call mechanical genius in the kinds of things that he made and was able to do. So he used that skill in a great way.
That's funny. I can imagine the eyeballs that were opening up when that plane flew in front of.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
And
goodness.
I asked his wife if she went up with him, and he said, or she said, no, somebody had to stay in the ground and pray. So kind of humorous.
So that's a good story.
Yeah. Let me move on, if it's okay, to another story taking place, originated down in Louisville, Kentucky. The story of Betty L. Johnson. And the first time I talked to Betty L. Johnson, she was in her 90s, and she was the executive director of the James Taylor Nursing Home down in Louisville, across the street, basically from the old Central High School, which I think now is a magnet school. And 90 years old, not in her early 90s, and was director of this nursing home. And she told me her story, and it was just absolutely fascinating to me. She told me that she lost her father at age 4. She grew up in the poor end of Louisville, on the West End. Lost her father at 4, and her next sibling was 10 years from her. So she had a whole lot of time with her mother, and a lot of reading, a lot of education oriented kind of things that they were able to do. So she made very, very, very good grades, and did well in school and so forth, and got out of high school and wanted to go on to college. And because in that time, and this would be in the early 1900s, because of the day law that was that originated in the legislature of Kentucky's assembly, General Assembly, she was not allowed to be a student at the main branch of the University of Louisville. Blacks and whites were not allowed to sit in the same classroom in those days. So what happened was she ended up going to university, the municipal, Louisville Municipal University, which was, of course, all Black. And ironically, she may have gotten a better education there, because you had a whole big number of Black professors that were PhDs that couldn't get jobs other places that came to this school. There was a low student teacher ratio. She got a very, very good education, not going to the main campus of Louisville College at that time. So she got out. She went to Indiana University, got a master's degree there, and entered teaching and became an educator at Central High. She graduated in her 30s. She was an educator until the mid 60s at Central High School. And one of the things that happened to her, she got a job that was sort of in a hushed manner at the psychology department of the University of Louisville, the main campus. And people liked the work that she did there, even though she really wasn't supposed to be there, you might say. They asked if maybe we could hire you part-time and you could continue to teach at Central. And the education establishment there didn't want her to do both things for whatever reason. And so she had to forego that opportunity, working in the psychology department at the University of Louisville. Well, she while she was teaching, and she did some counseling and other things at Central, she was involved with poor individuals in the area around the West End of Louisville, and she was in she had opportunities to help people further their education, learn about their rights and so forth. And sometimes people got upset with her because she was just a little too rambunctious as far as getting people riled up a little bit. Well, as it turned out, she went to Atlanta to work for the justice system down there, and she worked with a program that dealt with difficulties in busing at the time. And she worked down there for a good many years. She came back to Louisville in the 70s, early 70s, and she was in a program for child development there for about 5 years. From there, she took over her husband. Her husband's name was James Taylor. Took over a nursing home that he had built over in Prospect, Kentucky. And I guess this was more over on the East End. Said when she started, she didn't know a thing about it, but she must have learned really fast. Well, about that time, and that would have been in the early 80s, her husband, James Taylor, died. And so she sold that nursing home where she was director and came to the one that I ended up interviewing her at it near Central High later. And about that time also, he died. And about that time, she ran into a person in her life that just she thought was silly. She was 68 years old. He was 40. This man's name was Johnson, and he had been an NFL football player. And he also had a trucking business. And he asked her to marry him. And like I said she thought it was kind of silly at first, but she went along with it, and from all accounts had a great marriage.
Johnson.
And she had some resources. He had some resources, and I'll use that word ironically again. They began to be benefactors of the University of Louisville, the main campus. And one day, Betty got a call from the president of University of Louisville, Dr. Shoemaker at the time, had something to tell her, and which would be to her surprise. They had decided to name what has become one of the most beautiful dormitories in the state of Kentucky after Betty Johnson, the Betty Johnson Hall. And the quote I got from Betty was this: "It's ironic that I've received such an honor on the campus of a place where at one time I wasn't allowed to attend." Betty Johnson, an amazing story of overcoming, and I admire her for her lack of what could have been bitterness. And have you ever walk across that campus, or maybe some of you even had relatives in that? It is a beautiful, it looks more like an apartment house than it does a school dormitory. Betty Johnson Hall.
Wow, that's great.
We may want to pause for a minute because I think Carol has a trivia question.
Okay.
Sure. Well, before we move on, I think, yes, Anisha's going to share the screen here with our trivia question. So, though they refused to vote for him during his career, Kentuckians later embraced the legacy of this inspiring fellow Kentuckian's life. In November of 1911, President William Howard Taft visited the Commonwealth to dedicate a memorial in his honor. So you can type in the chat who you think we're looking for there. A little bit better known probably than than the folks that Steve is telling us about tonight. And actually it was the memorial, it was November 9th of 1911. So 110 years ago is when they dedicated the memorial to him. Dana says Cassius Clay. Any other thoughts on that?
Wait, whoa. The answer is Cassius Clay. Muhammad
No.
Ali.
No, that's what Dana says.
That's
But
the
it's
only
Cassius.
answer we have typed in so far, and
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, we do
Any
have
other thoughts?
prizes.
well, I'm not from Louisville, so I have a buyout on that one.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay. Dana's clarifying. Cassius Clay, the legislator. Cassius Marcellus Clay.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
Any other thoughts?
No, I'm trying to think. My mind went completely blank. Who was that?
That's a
Just
good
think-
guess, Cassius Marcellus Clay. He would have been kind of a
No.
contemporary. Yeah.
Oh shoot, I know him. I can't call it blank.
All right, you're probably going to slap yourself when you see the answer. Are we ready to show it, Carol?
Sure. Yeah, I can go ahead and clue you
is it
in.
Abraham Lincoln?
Lincoln Memorial.
I can't
Marshall.
stand the anticipation. Show it.
Well, we're
want to
actually
say
looking for Abraham Lincoln.
What?
That's who we're looking for.
Who
Yes.
was it?
Um,
Who was it again?
Abraham Lincoln.
Wait a minute, those dates don't match up.
That's 1911 is when they dedicated the memorial to Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Actually, so President Taft was in Kentucky on November the 8th. He was at the new Capitol. And they unveiled the statue in the rotunda of him. And then he went out to Hodgenville on the 9th and they dedicated the memorial. And let's see, someone asked about, Dana asked, yes, Lincoln lost the vote in Kentucky. Kentucky in 1860 went to John Bell, who was the Constitutional Union candidate. And I can't remember who it went to in 64, not Lincoln. They were really, really sour on Lincoln by 1864. So, but then of course later, now we love to claim Lincoln, but during his career, they sure didn't. Let's see, is the statue, oops, I lost you guys. Is the statue in the Capitol in DC represented by Lincoln? Do you mean like in the statuary hall in the Capitol? I'm not sure exactly who we have in statuary hall in DC. I think Ephraim McDowell, and I can't remember who the other person is.
It says yes, the rotunda.
The rotunda. Yeah, I'm not sure who exactly Kentucky has in DC. I should know that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up now. Okay. Thank you all.
The trivia person, the trivia.
Thank you all for playing, Steve. We'd love to hear some more stories if you're ready.
Okay. Thank you so much. I don't know why I didn't get that one myself. I'm kind of a trivia buff on things like that. Yeah,
Means I wrote a good
I like
question.
to I like to go through a couple, 2-3 stories here and make them much shorter and give some of the highlights because I don't want to leave tonight without you knowing about some people that you might be able to do a little bit more research on yourself. Let's talk about Mary Lou Bowley, who was lost her mother when she was a child, some I guess 80 years ago now. She was taken in by her father's sister, her aunt, and treated very well. She said, just as if she was her child. Lived next door to a church parsonage, and in that church parsonage, there were a whole lot of missionaries that would come through there. And so she grew up around people doing kind acts and being kind to missionaries and being around people that were of an international flavor. She grew up in the early 80s. She opened her own travel service down in Madisonville, Kentucky, in Western Kentucky, not far from Hopkinsville. And people say that she never sits still, and the things that she's been able to do. She's taken people to over 75 countries and as part of her business. But one country that Mary Lou particularly fell in love with was Cambodia. And she understood the great trauma that the people had gone through because of the landmines that were set off by the Khmer Rouge regime in the, I guess, late 60s, early 70s. And landmines were put throughout the land. And at one point, they said that 1 out of 350 people in this country, modern days, had their arm or leg blown off to these landmines, and that really bothered her a lot. So she put herself with this organization that gave wheelchairs to the people of Cambodia, and she was able to raise money through her travel agency, enough for 1,000 wheelchairs. And she had a friend. She wanted to make sure that they got there. She had a friend that she went over there with and talked about a particular ceremony where these wheelchairs were given out to these citizens of Cambodia. And she quoted to me, she says, "There was no legs to mobility, each chair designated for a particular person. They were soon up and running." And just the joy as she talked to me about that. There was a hospital over there that had only 50 beds that her travel agency raised money for. And in this country, United States, in 1995, she organized a group that took supplies to Oklahoma after a tornado. She was able to engineer a tractor trailer truck in 2005 to go down Katrina. And Mary Lou Bowley, this when I interviewed her was a good 10 years ago, so she would be in her 80s now, and I would not be surprised that she's doing some very similar kinds of things. Those early images of her life, when somebody reached out to her and cared for her when her mother died, and being around these acts of kindness and being around people that didn't look like her, paid big dividends for Kentucky and the world, and looking at this great Kentuckian, Mary Lou Bowley. And then I want to tell you real quickly about another one of my favorites, Charles Whitaker, down in River, Kentucky, in Johnson County, down in eastern Kentucky. He picked up cans along the side of the road in parking lots and other places. And he collected those cans, took them to the recycling center over in Prestonsburg, Kentucky, and he got money. And over the years, he got at least $37,000 worth. And that's great. But the really cool thing about it is that every time he got any money from the recycling center, here's a man in his 90s, he would take it over to the Johnson County Christian School, a private school, and a lot of the students there needed financial support. And he was kind of happy to tell me that he didn't even take his gasoline money out of it. An interesting man. He said that over his time of picking up aluminum cans, he logged all this stuff, and he said there was 2 million working on 3 million cans, he said. And he over that time, he had 3 pickups. He said the first one wore out. He was at with his friend Port Daniel in other pickup truck, and got hit at an intersection, and ended up spending 19 days in the hospital. Again, here's a man in his 90s, got out, started picking up cans again. And during that time, he's such a kind, special kind of a guy. He said people would make fun of him. He quoted one man as saying, "Nothing but the belly of a snake would do something as demeaning as what you're doing." And Charles Whitaker looked at me and says, I forgave that man. And he was always talking about how his faith meant so much to him. And I've written about him several times, and I've talked to my fourth grade students in the past about him. Here's a person who has left a living legacy that is just amazing. So our best years are ahead of us, right?
Sounds like it.
Any questions on either of those two stories, the Can Man or Mary Lou Bowl?
How's her last name spelled? Bowl, B-O-L-L or what?
Okay, yeah, B-O-A-L.
B-O-A-L.
Mary Lou. Mhm, mhm. And I would like to get back in contact with her. It's been a while. She would be in her 80s now, but I just wouldn't be surprised at all. She's raring to go. Any others?
When you interview these folks, did you record the interviews or just take
Yes.
notes? Or
Yeah, I sure do. I just don't like to sit there with a notepad and take notes. I like to look at them. I like to just record them. I like to come home and you know, if I interview somebody an hour and a half, that's probably going to make 5 or 6 hours worth of work, you know, transcribing it and so forth. But, you know, you listen to these things and things that you missed the first time, and they just kind of hit you. Yes.
Steve, do you have any favorite stories? I mean,
any favorite stories?
Any personal favorites?
Yeah, I do, and I don't know that I'll have time to read that to you tonight. But probably the personal favorite is the story of my brother, a year and a half younger than me, that a wonderful person, a person who had bailed me out so many times in my life, who passed away in 2018 from pancreatic cancer. And I wrote a story about him, and that will always be just my favorite story. And he's a person I think about every day, and that there'll never be another story like that. But I have a whole bunch of stories. I mean, the Kendall Harvey is one of my favorites, and yeah. Let me tell another one here about a couple women who I admire greatly. Also, one of my favorite stories. Let me tell you about Irma Gall and Peggy Kemner. I don't know if any of you have heard of Stinking Creek down in Knox County, not far from Barberville, but it was written about in the mid-60s by a man by the name of John Fetterman. And it's a very, very poor area of Kentucky, one of the poorest. And he did profiles of individuals down there and wrote about the life. But Irma Gall and Peggy Kemner were two women that came to that area in the late 1950s. Irma Gall was from Indiana. Peggy Kemner was from Pennsylvania. Both very missionary, you might say, oriented, had decided they would devote their life to their faith. And they met down in Leslie County, down in eastern Kentucky, struck up a friendship, decided that they would sort of work in ministry together. So they went from Leslie County to Stinking Creek there in Knox County. Mountainous, primitive, the people that lived there, uneducated to a great extent, extremely poor, health issues all about them. And taking their skills in mind, Irma said, I'll teach school, and Peggy, you deliver babies. Peggy had got her training under the Frontier Nursing Service, an iconic organization that's done so much good. And they had to find a place there in Stinking Creek that they could live. And I always get kick out of this. The people that lived in Stinking Creek saw these two women as, these do-gooder types that they didn't know if they trusted. And so it was not easy for them to get a place to live down there. But someone led them to a house that was down in close to Stinking Creek. And as they came upon it, it was in 1958. It was an old frame 2-story house. And Irma told me this. Irma was in her late 80s, I guess, when she told me this. She said the flood of 57 had ravaged that house. There were snake trails all through the house and dead birds. The windows were gone, and also part of the roof was gone. But it was a 6-room house, 4 rooms on the bottom and 2 on the top. We immediately thought, this is it. This is it. And the gentleman that they talked to said, if you'll fix it up, we'll let you live here rent free. And so they did. Eventually, they were able to buy, and it was really cheap land. It's about 500 acres in that area. And that became what is known as the Linda Hand Center. And they started out, Irma would ride on a horse 8 miles to a 1-room teaching situation. Peggy rode a horse and sometimes a little Jeep and delivered babies and attended medical needs. And both of them gained respect. And, I said that people were suspicious of them and they were these do-gooders, but Irma told me in the interview, within 2 years, they were asking, what creek are you from? Evidently, we were not considered snobs, she said. We had talents. We'd hear a woman screaming, ready to give birth, and we'd walk in and we'd get quiet because they knew that Peggy was there. And as the years advanced and new buildings of intentional purpose were built, a multitude of items under the banner Lend a Hand became a part of what Irma and Peggy did. They started a 4-H club for young people, teaching such things as healthier eating and farming activities. They taught Sunday school classes and formally counseled and mentored troubled youth, and at times gave them a place to stay. The operation became a haven for college student volunteers and others with like-minded desires to be of service. The mission of delivering babies was enhanced when Peggy opened a clinic inside the center where many of the other activities are done. Now, I interviewed her about 3 years ago, and by this time, this was of course in the 2000s, they'd started in the late 50s. Peggy was at that point in a nursing home, but Irma was still going strong, and she had a vehicle she called a mule, and she took me all over that place and showed me the buildings that they had built themselves, maybe with a little help, the crops that they had raised. They taught other people how to raise crops. Were just 2 people who, because of their authenticity, was able to overcome all the suspiciousness and became, you might say, icons in the holler down in Stinking Creek, Kentucky. A fascinating story. And you can read a story that was the story about them that is in the Stinking Creek book back in the 1960s by John Fetterman. I forgot the exact title, but it's got Stinking Creek in it, and it's written by John Fetterman. I'd check that out. I'd highly recommend it. And there was a particular story about these 2. But
Steve, where can we hear or read some more of your stories?
I tell you what, just Google my name, Steve Flairty, Flairty, and you'll see the stories, and you can see how you can read more of my stories. I'll just put it that way.
Thanks. Okay, Jackie Baker, I'm gonna give it back to you.
Okay. So, where we at? I'm sorry, I done lost my place. Oh. Okay, So I want to give a huge thank you to Steve for all the inspiring stories. This was a great session. Now, but before I say that, Steve, when you was talking about Charlie Johnson,
Yes.
I had an opportunity to meet him and his wife. He had he had a trucking company.
Yes.
Here in Louisville. He eventually ended up moving to Atlanta. But
Okay.
He was a big supported and donor of my church, which is First Considering Baptist Church here in
I'm not
Louisville,
surprised.
Kentucky. Yeah, but he's big guy, big heart. He was very humble person. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just wanted, and his wife was sweet as she could be. She was such a sweet person. Yeah.
An amazing person, and
Yeah, she was
truly
very-
amazing person.
It was like they was real. I didn't know the story, but now that I hear it, I mean, you wouldn't think, because they was just a couple made. They was just made for each other. They was a fit, like a glove fit your hand. That's just how they was. They was just two good people, really great people. So I'm glad that you did do that story and you got an opportunity to interview him.
It was my pleasure, my honor.
Mm-hmm. So this was a great session. Now we'll hear from Sandra about AARP Kentucky comebackers, and we'll wrap up with the winners of the sweepstakes. Sandra, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Hello, I'm Sandra McGuire, and I'm an AARP Kentucky volunteer, and I am one of their lifelong learning ambassadors. So we wanted to share with you tonight some resources that can help you or maybe somebody you know with sort of an educational comeback. We know that sometimes life gets in the way and things like education get put on the back seat. So, but we wanted you to know it's really never too late. And especially here in Kentucky, we have some really great opportunities that are in place right now to help you advance your education or your career. And Anisha, is a slide showing on the screen that shows the pathways?
No,
Can it show on the screen?
it'll probably come up. I don't
Okay.
have access to the slides, so I can't help.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I can just tell you the first there's like pretty much three pathways, and the first pathway is to help anybody who's listening in or somebody that they may know to earn their GED. And Kentucky Skills U offers free adult education services in all 120 counties, but right now, through grant money to the state of Kentucky, you can get, people can get a tuition fee waiver so that they can take the GED. So that's a really nice opportunity for people that maybe cost was getting in the way of doing that. So that is on the first pathway, but part of that first pathway also is called a GED Plus, where you could get a GED and earn a technical certificate simultaneously with the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. And these are all relatively new programs. And what we're trying to do is get just people to know about them. The second pathway, these are for adults to earn a certificate or associate degree. It's sort of like Work Ready Kentucky, where you can qualify to earn up to 60 college credits tuition free here at a Kentucky public institution if you already have your high school diploma or your GED. So that's a pretty big gift, you know, to be able to earn a certificate, because a lot of those certificates could be in construction or technology or things that there's jobs out there right now that would be open to people if they had the training. Also under that option is the Donovan Fellowship, which this is the only one of all these options that sort of has a specific age requirement. I mean, otherwise it's open to like all adult ages, but the Donovan is people 65 or older may be able to qualify for a tuition waiver to take courses or work towards a degree tuition free with a Donovan Fellowship. And then the last pathway is you might have a resource to help you finish a college degree if you have already started a degree. And so that is the Donovan Fellowship again, but there again, that's for people 65 plus. So just to be a little clear, if you previously earned 80 or more college credits at a Kentucky 4-year public institution, there may be degree completion options available at an institution for you. And that's available to all Kentuckians who would qualify. And you need to check with your specific institution. We're just trying to get the information out there, but people will need to check with their specific institution in order to see exactly how they qualify or if they qualify. And if the slide was up there, which it's really helpful, it would have been listed as project graduate, but we don't have the slide up there. So all of these pathways from GED to associate degree, to certificate, to bachelor's, you can build on those. So you could start with a GED, you might go to a technical program or decide you wanted to get an associate's and then decide you wanted to go on to a bachelor's. You can keep building on these. And it may be not for you, but you might know somebody that you think could benefit from these programs. And we just want you to just be aware of the programs, pass the information on to people who it might be helpful to. And if the slide was up there, if you go to aarp.org/KY comebackers, just click on, just open that up and it will show you all of these options, and it will show you the slide that would have been up there that sort of outlines all of the options. And it'll actually give you links that you can go to click on the options. And there may be phone numbers that you could call to get additional information. So just visit that website. There's also the brochure that the slide would have been in is actually printable. So you could print it off and you could give it to somebody, or if you're going to an event and you think it might be helpful for people, print some off and take it to your event. So anyway, I'm sorry we couldn't show you the slide because it really makes all the pathways pretty clear. But you guys, thank you for listening. And back to you, Jackie B.
By the way, I'm typing some of those in
the
chat. So if you need them, just go in there and check. We're on Facebook, Twitter. We have email. You can go to aarp.org/Kentucky, aarp.org/KY, and you can find everything from there. We're into a little bit of everything.
No, AARP is really heavily invested in this, and I really have to give them credit because most of these options, except for the Donovan, apply to all adults. It's not just people 50 and over. It's like you can know somebody who just recently hasn't finished high school and wants to go on and get their GED and technical school. So it's a really great program. Really proud that Kentucky offers it. We just need to get the information out.
It's true. Okay, so once again, thank you, Sandra, for that presentation. And before we wrap up, are we ready to see our giveaway winners, Jackie White?
Yes, I have been. I'm looking to see if there's anything else I need to see. No, I don't think so. Okay, I've got the names. I'm just going to read them out, and you will be getting information about your prize. Andra Adams, Lisa Bentz, Phyllis Bergant, Rita Combs Garrett, Anna Conley, Carol Haney, Jana Kemp, Louis Moffitt, Diana Ross,
Supreme.
Edith Thacker, Mary Walters, Janet Wilson, Walter Cox, and Dwight Turner. So that's all the prize winners, and we know how to contact you from the registration information we'll be talking to you about that. And that's a real nice gift. So I'm glad we had a lot of winners on that. Carol, did you want to talk about any of the Kentucky Historical Society events coming up?
I would love to. And I'm sorry, I don't have slides to share. I think we might have lost Anisha. She was
Yeah,
gonna
we
share.
lost our technical person. She got wiped out.
That's all
I don't know what
right.
happened.
That's all right.
She took those prizes and left.
This is actually a really big week for us at KHS. I'm pretty excited about everything that's going on. We actually have a new exhibit opening this Thursday evening, the 11th. It is called Illuminations, and it explores the history of light in Kentucky, how we've used it in different ways and the meanings that it's held for people over time. So we're heading into the darkest part of the year. So what better time for an exhibit on light? And it opens on Thursday evening, which is also the same time that the city of Frankfort has our annual candlelight celebration. It's kind of a kickoff to the holiday season. So there's lots of fun stuff going on in downtown Frankfort that evening, including our fantastic exhibit. This is the first new exhibit we've been able to open since COVID hit. So I'm pretty excited about that. And Dana asked, how long will the exhibit be at the museum? So it opens on candlelight and it'll be there through the spring equinox, which is, I believe, March 21st. So that's how long you have to see it. So I do hope you'll come visit us pretty soon. And as part of our celebration of that new exhibit opening, one of the events that we have planned is actually coming up this Saturday, the 13th. River City Tintype, which is a really cool business in Louisville that does a wonderful old style portraits. I'm going to show you mine right here. They're going to be at KHS on Saturday the 13th, and you can sign up to have a tintype done. So if you like old photographs, come on and get one. This is mine. Can you see it? Kind of. That's me. My coworker told me I look like a mermaid, and I was like, oh, so
where are
they
you
are
again?
$60. Sorry,
Carol, where would they go to do this?
you can, well, you should sign up in advance. So if you visit our website, which is history.ky.gov, you
Okay.
can sign up there. Really, for any of our events, if you send an email to khseducation@ky.gov, they can help you out, and I'll put that in the chat as well. But that's on Saturday the 13th. River City Tintype will be in Frankfort at the History Center from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. Make a great Christmas gift. That's what I'm going to do with my tintype. So that's on Saturday. Now in December, we have some cool stuff going on too. Every month we have a speaker series. It's called First Friday. Guess what? That's when it happens. So First Friday in December will be on December 3rd. It starts at noon. We're holding it virtually right now until all this COVID business calms down a little bit more. And our speaker is a guy named Brad Asher. And he has just published a book called The Most Hated Man in Kentucky, which is a great title. And it's all about the legacy of Union General Stephen Burbridge, who was he was the military, he was in charge of Kentucky during the Civil War, and he did some controversial things. So join us to learn about General Burbridge on Friday, December 3rd at noon. And that you can, again, email khseducation@ky.gov if you're interested in that. And then finally, the next day, Saturday, December 4th, you can come to the Old State Capitol, which is the building that you see in my background behind me there. The guy who designed this building is named Gideon Schrock. And it was built it was completed in 1830. Some writers from Louisville, Winfrey Blackburn and Scott Gill, have just published a new biography of Gideon Schrock and all about his the Old State Capitol and his other architectural work as well. So Mr. Blackburn and Mr. Gill will be giving a talk here at the Old State Capitol on Saturday, December 4th at 3 in the afternoon. It's free. You can pick up a copy of their new book. You can get it signed. It's really special for us because the old state capitol is actually Gideon Schrock's very first professional design. He was only 25 when he designed this place. It was right out of his training. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful building. So I hope you'll join us for some of those things. And again, if you have questions for me, please feel free to put something in the chat and check out our website for more info. Thanks.
Okay, great. Jackie Baker, do you have some information on the Tracing family